Chapter 1 in AP Environmental Science is going to deal with concepts such as globalization, sustainability, renewable resources, kind of just an overview of what we're going to talk about during this course. Environmental science, kind of a new area in the last 40, 50 years, kind of studies how the Earth works, our interaction with the Earth, how we humans affect the Earth. For example, we cause the extinction of about 10,000 species per year. I shouldn't say we cause it, we contribute to it. Methods, procedures to deal with those problems too. We have environmental laws, both internationally and federally, that we'll talk about. Biosphere, that's anything that is living. Bio means living, of course. Natural world, plants, animals, soils, air, water. Anything that affects any living components also is included in that. Culture sphere is our technological, economic, cultural, and political aspects of our world. Technology is a huge new thing, obviously, and we can track deforestation, for example, which we'll hit in a bit, using satellite imagery. So we can keep an eye on Brazil, which has the largest remaining rainforest, using those techniques. Which is unheard of as of 20, 30 years ago. Ecology is kind of the topic we're going to start out with, a little bit more hardcore science. It's a relationship between living organisms and their environment, such as food chains, food webs. Environmentalism, social movement dedicated to protecting life support systems for all species. And then, so we'll kind of transition to that more after we hit the more sciencey kind of part of it. Solar capital is basically anything we get from the sun. It creates renewable energy such as wind power, hydropower, which is kind of hard to understand, but the sun really drives a lot of these cycles that we'll talk about throughout. Wind power, for example, the most direct place that warm air hits is the equatorial region. That warm air, of course, as you probably learned with the laws of physics, will rise. What happens is with the spinning of the Earth, we get convection cells that are created and we get wind. Hydropower, same thing, is driven by the sun because of evaporation, transpiration. Transpiration, by the way, is loss of water by plants. Without that sun, we wouldn't get hydropower and that water cycle. A lot of this is stored in biomass, such as wood. Biomass is something we'll talk about down the road. It's a resource that actually, if used too quickly, is deemed non-renewable. And what happens is we can run out of it, like in some places like China is occurring, India, and Haiti has really gotten hit by that. Biomass, for us, perspective, if you took an animal and used its dry weight, or a plant and used its dry weight, in other words, evaporate all the water out, that's its biomass. So think about burning wood, for example, as biomass. There's natural capital, air, water, soil, wildlife, minerals that we can look at. There's biological income. Obviously, some people make a living by fishing, by grazing animals in a grassland area. Underground water sources are an example of biological income because farmers need that underwater resource in order to grow their crops. Sustainability is the idea, and we'll use this over and over again, is not compromising the needs and resources of future generations. In other words, let's not cut all the trees down in the United States because our next generation won't have them. They don't grow that fast. Another big principle in this class is we need to eliminate waste and deplete resources in general. The eliminating waste we've gotten so much better at in the United States as of late. We're getting cars, for example, that are much more efficient. It used to be the case where cars were about 25% efficient. So if you put $10 worth of gas in your car, about $7.50 of that is actually wasted as heat. If you touch a car engine, for example, it's really hot. Don't do that though. So we're getting appliances, we're getting better windows in your homes. Things we'll talk about that make things much better. If we just get rid of that waste, will function so much better. This little picture is kind of a tell-all. It's actually something called deforestation. So you can see what happened. Kind of a positive feedback is the more our population goes up, the more feed we need to, or the more food rather, that we need to grow. So what happens is we cut down all this forest and we plant crops like this. What happens with that is then we need more fertilizers, we need more pesticides, and we harm the environment more. Thus the positive feedback where it just keeps going in one direction. So this is just one example of something we'll hit down the road when we talk forestry. Population growth and economics come in play big time. Human growth is exponential, of course. There's about 211,000 people that are born per day. So with 211,000 new people born per day, obviously you can see environmental concerns go up because we need to grow food. We're polluting the air more, polluting the water more. We need more clean water. A lot of people don't have those resources. Economic growth provides goods and services. We're going to talk about two main things. GDP is something called gross domestic product, which if you've had an econ class already, you probably grossly talked about. That's overall. Think about a plant. A plant makes energy for itself. It really doesn't make it for us. I should say it makes that glucose and oxygen for itself. It'll use that in the process of cellular respiration. We actually take what's left over. So we take something called net product. Gross domestic product is all the services that we have available to us. Gross national income, good value for goods and services within a country. The United States has a very good GDP and GNI. We have that affluence, which actually tends to drive throwing a lot of products away and wasting a lot of things. Standard of living is your GDP divided by your total population. Again, as a rule of thumb, developed countries have very good GDP and very good ultimate standard of living. In the United States, we have very, very high standard of living. In European nations, a lot. If you look at more at developing countries such as Africa, of course, most of African nations, except like South Africa, very low standard of living because they just don't have the products and resources available. Population, huge concern, obviously, what's happening. You can see this J-shaped curve took a little dip in this magical thing called Black Death or the Plague. What happened, though, with Industrial Revolution, we're seeing more people move into cities worldwide, starting then because of jobs, but our population is just growing and growing and growing. I know we hit 6 billion people in 1999, and now we're at over 7 billion people and exponentially growing. Developed versus developing country, big in this class. Developed countries have high industrialization. United States is an example. South Africa is an example. Most of European nations are an example. Canada's in here. Japan's in here. High per capita income. We have about 3% of the world's population only. Longer life expectancy, decrease in infant mortality. Infant mortality is defined as when a child dies before age 1. Greater food production, decreased air and water pollution, and we have a decrease in poverty overall. As you'll learn in this class too, poverty really drives a lot of environmental problems. Mainly agricultural based is developing, low income, 97% of the world's population. They have shorter life expectancy, unfortunately, because of not clean water and not great food choices. High infant mortality rate, rely on sustainable agriculture, relaxed laws, if any, and very high poverty.